at an emergency session of the Arab League, a show of unity and anger. The 22 nations that make up the organization gathered in Cairo to forcefully reject U.S. President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
This decision threatens Jerusalem's legal status and affects all the Arab Muslims and Christians and the Islamic world altogether. We would like here to be frank and call things by their real name. The decision taken by the American administration to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to move the American embassy to Jerusalem is unacceptable and very dangerous.
The Arab League has long been involved in the Palestinian struggle, first by denouncing the creation of Israel and through its involvement in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. It later supported the creation of the first international body representing the Palestinian people, which led to the formation of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, which was admitted as a member in 1964. 3 years later, after the six-day Arab-Israeli War, the League issued the so-called Khartoum Resolution, which set out what became known as the three no's: no peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, and no negotiations with it. But at the Beirut summit in 2002, the League adopted the so-called Arab Peace Initiative, a Saudi-inspired peace plan to end the conflict. The plan offered full normalization with Israel. In exchange, Israel was required to withdraw from all occupied territories, to recognize Palestinian independence in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem as its capital, as well as a just solution for Palestinian refugees. The peace initiative was endorsed again at the Riyadh summit 5 years later, but never resulted in any kind of agreement. Now, with President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, an Arab-led solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict seems further away than ever. Whatever the case, Arab League leaders announced they had reached an agreement on how to respond to the move.
Firstly, this decision was rejected, and the Arab League rejects all its consequences. Secondly, we have agreed to form a committee for Arab peacemaking, which will deal with the international community. This is in order to achieve progress in respect of the Palestinian issue. Jordan will be head of the committee, which will be formed next month.
Despite the anger, the Arab League put forward no measures against the United States, although it said it would consider its options while continuing efforts to find a lasting solution to the Palestinian struggle, a struggle that shows no signs of easing.
Criticizing the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the Arab League's Secretary-General said the move could derail peace efforts. Ahmed Abul-Gheit called on the world's leaders to reject what he called the US president's illegal decision.
The decision by the US administration is in its essence legitimizing the occupation and admitting and allowing their stance by force. It is a waste of international legitimacy and the principles of justice, and therefore has placed he who took the decision in a state of conflict with the collective will of the international community.
The Palestinian foreign minister said world leaders should recognise the state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital and condemned the US move.
We expect from you to instruct the Arab bloc at the United Nations to submit a draft resolution to the UN Security Council condemning Trump's decision.
Jerusalem's status lies at the centre of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and Trump's announcement was widely perceived as siding with Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister accused European officials of hypocrisy for criticising US President Donald Trump's decision.
I ascribe great importance to Europe. While I respect Europe, I am not prepared to accept a double standard from it. I hear voices from there condemning President Trump's historic statement, but I have not heard condemnations of the rockets fired at Israel or the terrible incitement against it. I am not prepared to accept this hypocrisy, and as usual at this important forum, I will present Israel's truth without fear and with head held high.
And now there are fears that Trump's announcement could damage the US standing in the Middle East.
And I'll begin with the Palestinian foreign minister having called on member states of the Arab League to take action in response to the U.S. president's declaration of Jerusalem al Quds as Israel's capital.
We expect from you Arab nations to instruct the Arab bloc at the United Nations to submit a draft resolution to the UN Security Council condemning Trump's decision.
Riyad al-Maliki made the statement at an Arab League emergency meeting in the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Maliki also called on world nations to defy Donald Trump's decision by recognizing the state of Palestine with East Jerusalem al Quds as its capital. Top Palestinian diplomat said Trump's announcement revealed his hostility and bias toward the people of Palestine. He added, the decision destroyed any possibility of a negotiated settlement between Palestinians and Israelis. Other attendants at the meeting also announced that Washington has lost its credibility as a Middle East peace broker following Donald Trump's move.
Foreign ministers of the Arab League have issued a resolution at the end of an emergency meeting in the Egyptian capital, calling on the U.S. to rescind its recognition of Jerusalem al Quds as the capital of Israel. The resolution also calls on the international community to recognize the state of Palestine with East Jerusalem al Quds as its capital. The Arab League foreign ministers say Washington has lost credibility as what they call a peace broker in the Middle East following Trump's move. They slammed the measure as a dangerous violation of international law, warning that it may plunge the region into further chaos and violence. Earlier during the meeting, Palestine's foreign minister called on the Arab League member states to take action in response to Trump's announcement.
We expect from you Arab nations to instruct the Arab bloc at the United Nations to submit a draft resolution to the UN Security Council condemning Trump's decision.
Now, Riyad al-Maliki said Trump's announcement revealed his hostility and bias toward the people of Palestine. He added that the decision destroyed any possibility of a negotiated settlement between the Palestinians and Israelis. The top Palestinian diplomat said the controversial measure provides an opportunity for those who want to start a religious war in the region. Political commentator Richard Silverstein believes that the Muslim world should unite and make Washington and Tel Aviv pay a price for Trump's recognition of Jerusalem al Quds as Israel's capital.
This is an issue that it's beyond sect and beyond religious difference. And the entire Muslim world really has to get together and create a coordinated approach to this, a long-term strategy, because what Trump has done, besides being outrageous, it's extremely dangerous. Of course, I agree completely with the idea that the United Nations must recognize Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. I also believe that other strategies should be explored. Perhaps the oil producers, the Arab and Muslim oil-producing countries, should consider some form of action that would make the United States and Israel pay a price. I really think that we have to also look to BDS. We have to force the countries of the world which are on the fence about BDS and make them realize that this is another tool that must be used. We must impose sanctions on not just Israel, but we have to impose a payment on the United States for its insane actions over the past week.